The morning before our son's wedding, our driver quietly instructed, "Lie down on the back seat and cover yourself with the blanket. You need to hear this." I initially refused, but he persisted. "Trust me." Half an hour later, I heard it all. "Before we continue, please tell me where you're from and your age. Enjoy the story." The morning was strangely hushed, as if the city itself was holding its breath for a grand occasion. Inside Lyudmila Petrovna's apartment, the air was filled with the scent of freshly laundered linens, warm bread, and that undeniable pre-wedding excitement that no amount of airing out could dispel. Today was the wedding of Artyom, her son, her one and only long-awaited child, the very reason she had stood tall for so many years, even when her spirit felt ready to buckle. Lyudmila Petrovna awoke before her alarm, not from sleeplessness, but the opposite. Her sleep had been heavy and restless, as though stones had been shifted within her throughout the night. She sat on the edge of her bed listening to the house. Silence. The refrigerator gave a soft sigh. The hallway clock ticked away another minute. "That's it," she told herself. "Today isn't about my anxieties. Today is about his happiness." She turned on the kettle, retrieved the special white tablecloth she had kept for such an occasion, then for some reason put it back. Tablecloths weren't the priority. The day was filled with a whirlwind of events. The registry office, the photographer, the reception, guests, envelopes, rings, speeches, and then there was the folder of documents Artyom had asked her to bring, just in case. The folder sat on the dresser, neatly organized as expected. It contained copies of property deeds, insurance policies, and various certificates that might be needed if questions arose regarding the banquet hall. Lyudmila Petrovna disliked signing and handling paperwork without full understanding, but Artyom had become more cautious, or perhaps overly insistent in recent months when it came to formalities. She hadn't denied him. She didn't want to start the wedding day with disagreements. Downstairs, waiting by the house, was Viktor Nikolaevich, their driver. He had been with them for a long time, ever since her husband was alive. After her husband passed, Viktor Nikolaevich had stayed on, even though he could have left. He remained quietly, without fuss, as if it were his duty. Lyudmila Petrovna respected him for one thing above all. He never intruded on anyone's life, but when he spoke, it was because it truly mattered. She stepped out of the building, adjusted her coat, and saw Viktor Nikolaevich standing by the car, not smoking, not looking at his phone, just waiting. His face was calm, as usual. Only his eyes held a certain intensity, a tension, as if he had been guarding something unseen all night. "Good morning, Lyudmila Petrovna," he said, opening the car door. "Good morning," she replied, settling into the back seat. "Shall we go? Artyom must be up by now." Viktor Nikolaevich got behind the wheel, started the engine, but didn't move. "Lyudmila Petrovna," he cleared his throat, as if unsure how to begin. "Please forgive me. Lie down on the seat and cover yourself with this blanket. You need to hear something." She didn't grasp it immediately. "What?" she asked, as if she'd misheard. "Lie down," he repeated softly. "Here's the blanket. Cover yourself. You need to hear something. There's no other way." Lyudmila Petrovna leaned back, bewildered. "Viktor, are you joking? It's our wedding day. Where am I supposed to lie down? People will be calling." "I'm not joking," he stated, his tone as always, brief and to the point. "I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important." She was about to protest. "What do you think you're doing?" But then she saw his hands on the steering wheel, clenched tightly, his knuckles white. He was genuinely anxious, and he was rarely anxious. "Is it about Artyom?" she asked, her tone shifting. Viktor Nikolaevich didn't answer immediately. He glanced in the rearview mirror, not at her, but at something beyond, as if checking if anyone could overhear them. "Please believe me," he finally said. "I'm asking you, just do as I say. Half an hour, and then you can decide what to do next." There was something in his voice that sent a chill down Lyudmila Petrovna's spine. He wasn't trying to frighten her. He was protecting her. Slowly, she removed her hat, placed it on the seat beside her, and feeling both foolish and anxious, slid down. The blanket was wool, familiar, from home. They had kept one like it in the car years ago. She pulled it up to her chin, held it tight, and froze, listening to her own breathing. Outside, everything seemed normal. The courtyard, the morning, someone walking a dog. The car was parked so that nothing was visible from the street. The windows were slightly tinted, and the blanket made her invisible even to the curious. Viktor Nikolaevich drove off as if simply going about his errands, taking a turn different from their usual route to the registry office. "Viktor," Lyudmila Petrovna whispered. "We are," he replied in a similar whisper. "Now." He stopped by a small park, usually quiet in the mornings. The car pulled into the shade of the trees. Viktor Nikolaevich turned off the engine, leaving the ignition on so the interior light would work, but no, the light didn't come on. He sat motionless. 2 minutes passed, then 3. Suddenly a car door slammed outside. Someone got into the front passenger seat. Lyudmila Petrovna recognized the sound immediately. Artyom. Her son always settled into a seat with a slight jolt, as if in a hurry. "Viktor, let's go," Artyom said, sighing. "Listen," Artyom lowered his voice. "The main thing is, no unnecessary talk. She'll be so touched today. Understand?" "I understand," Viktor Nikolaevich replied curtly. "Is Igor Sergeyevich arriving soon?" Artyom asked. Lyudmila Petrovna felt her heart lurch. Igor Sergeyevich. She knew him. He sometimes came by to say hello, to reminisce about her husband, telling stories, always smiling, always polite. But Lyudmila Petrovna disliked him, though she couldn't explain why. She just felt the urge to clutch her bag tighter and speak cautiously around him. "He'll be here," Viktor Nikolaevich said. "Good. Then everything is according to plan." Plan? The word sounded entirely out of place on a wedding day. Silence descended again in the car. Lyudmila Petrovna lay beneath the blanket. Suddenly realizing her palms were sweating, she clenched her fingers to stop them from trembling. A few more minutes passed. Footsteps sounded outside. The rear door opened, and someone sat beside Artyom, or perhaps in the adjacent seat. No, it was the front passenger door. Another man got in. "Good morning, Artyom," a familiar voice said. "You look like a man about to make the right decision." "Good morning, Igor Sergeyevich," Artyom replied. "Everything's fine, as long as there are no surprises." "There will be surprises," Igor Sergeyevich said calmly, "but only pleasant ones for us." Lyudmila Petrovna held her breath. "Mom?" Artyom hesitated. "She's stubborn, you know that." "That's why I'm here," Igor Sergeyevich said gently. "There won't be any trickery, just a formality. You'll tell her, 'Mom, this is to make everything official.' She'll sign, and that's it." "And if she asks what she's signing?" Artyom's voice grew strained. "Tell her it's paperwork for the reception to process the payments. Tell her it's for insurance. Tell her it's for peace of mind." "You're a smart boy, Artyom." "Boy," Lyudmila Petrovna thought. "My son is almost 40, and this man is speaking to him like a child." And Artyom remained silent, so he's used to it. Artyom swallowed. "What about the house? If she finds out, won't she—" "She won't," Igor Sergeyevich replied calmly. "Not until it's too late. After she signs, the bank will decide. And the bank doesn't engage in kitchen table conversations." Lyudmila Petrovna felt a heavy weight settle in her chest. The house. Her house. The very one she and her husband had built brick by brick. The one where Artyom had grown up. The one she had cherished as her most precious possession. Shelter, security, her last defense. "Artyom," Igor Sergeyevich continued, "you don't need to think about feelings. You need to think about the future. You have a family, a fiancé, children to come. You can't live like your mother. Everything on your own, everything honestly." "Honesty is admirable until you have to pay," Artyom said quietly. "I know, I just didn't want it to be like this. Like this." "This is when you're backed into a corner." Igor Sergeyevich's voice gained a hint of steel. "But we act in advance. That's adulthood." Lyudmila Petrovna lay there, unable to comprehend how this was possible. Her son, her Artyom, who used to bring her daisies and say, Mom, don't cry, was now discussing how to trick her into signing. She wanted to leap out, grab Artyom by the shoulders, shake him, and ask, "Who are you? Where is my son?" But she lay still, and the blanket suddenly felt heavy, as if made of stone. At the same time, she understood that if she moved now, they would immediately say, "You misunderstood everything. You were eavesdropping. You created a scene on your wedding day." And she would be painted as the unreasonable one. "Victor," Igor Sergeyevich said, "do you hear? We're leaving now. We'll pick up the mother, then follow the route. Not a word out of place. Understood?" Viktor Nikolaevich replied calmly. "Understood. And one more thing," Igor Sergeyevich added. "Make sure she doesn't go to the bank herself. She doesn't need to." "She doesn't go," Artyom said. "She trusts me." That last sentence hit harder than any other because it was true. The car began to move. Beneath the blanket, Lyudmila Petrovna felt the gentle sway of the interior. She lay there, listening to their conversation, each sentence adding another piece to a picture she desperately didn't want to see. It emerged that Artyom had taken out some kind of loan, that Igor Sergeyevich had helped him get involved in a project, and that now one debt needed to be quickly covered by another, with Lyudmila Petrovna's house serving as ideal collateral. "She's getting older anyway," Igor Sergeyevich said, almost affectionately. "She doesn't need that much. And you do? You don't want to be penniless, do you?" "Mom isn't poor," Artyom suddenly said sharply. "Not yet," Igor Sergeyevich countered calmly. "But who is secure now? One wrong step, and everything is gone. We are taking a step, but it's the right one." Lyudmila Petrovna closed her eyes to prevent tears from falling. She didn't want to cry. Not now. Tears were a sign of weakness, and she needed clarity. After a while, the car stopped, and a door opened. "That's it," Artyom said. Lyudmila Petrovna heard footsteps as Artyom got out. Viktor Nikolaevich quickly pulled into a side street and stopped in a quiet spot between buildings where people rarely walked. "Lyudmila Petrovna," he said softly, "you can get up now." She rose, smoothed her hair, her hands trembling. "You—" She tried to speak, but her voice was hoarse. "You knew? Suspected?" he replied. "I saw the papers, I saw Igor Sergeyevich coming, and I saw how Artyom was changing." "And why?" She looked at him. Didn't you tell me sooner?" Viktor Nikolaevich met her gaze. "Sometimes," he said, "until a person hears it with their own ears, they won't believe. I could have told you, and you would have thought, Victor is exaggerating, Victor is suspicious. But now, you've heard it all yourself." Lyudmila Petrovna pursed her lips. She understood he was right. She wouldn't have believed him, or perhaps wouldn't have wanted to. "What should I do?" she finally asked. "Today is the wedding, guests, the bride, the girl isn't to blame." "Do what allows you to remain alive and with your house," Viktor Nikolaevich said concisely. "As for the rest, I'll take you wherever you say. If you want to see a lawyer, a notary, or go home, but do not get into that car with them." Lyudmila Petrovna straightened up. Something clicked inside her, as if a light had been switched on. The fear hadn't vanished, but something else had joined it. Determination. "To the bank," she said quietly. "First, to the bank." Viktor Nikolaevich nodded and started the car. The bank was open, and there weren't many people. Lyudmila Petrovna entered, her demeanor calm and dignified, as usual. No one knew that inside. She was trembling. She approached the teller and stated, "I need to check if there are any encumbrances or pending applications on my property, and also a block on any transactions without my personal presence." The manager was initially surprised, then began asking questions. Lyudmila Petrovna answered clearly. She knew documents and procedures. They were her domain. Artyom might be swayed by emotions, but she would play by the rules. An hour later, she held papers confirming that a request for preliminary consideration of collateral had indeed been submitted to the bank, not yet finalized, but prepared, with her house listed as the asset. "Who submitted the request?" Lyudmila Petrovna asked. The manager named the company and the contact person's name, Igor Sergeyevich. Lyudmila Petrovna wasn't surprised. She merely shuddered at how businesslike and calm it all was. "I forbid any actions," she declared, "only through me. And please, record that I made this inquiry today." The manager nodded and printed out a statement. Lyudmila Petrovna signed it with full awareness. Her signature today would only appear where she understood every single letter. After the bank, Viktor Nikolaevich drove her to a notary she had known for a long time. The notary, a stern, reserved man, turned out to be reliable. "Lyudmila Petrovna," he said after listening to her story, "you've made the right decision. The most important thing today is not to sign anything you haven't prepared beforehand. And if they try to persuade you, leave. Your safety is more important than someone else's smile." "But the wedding," she exhaled. "I'm a mother." "You are a mother," the notary nodded. "And that's precisely why you must remain alive and clear-headed to help yourself and your son, if he is still capable of listening. And if not, to avoid drowning with him." The words were harsh, but true. Lyudmila Petrovna stepped outside and, for the first time that morning, felt her legs supporting her more firmly. "To the registry office?" Viktor Nikolaevich asked. She remained silent for a few seconds. "To the registry office," she finally said, "but on different terms." They arrived a little later. Guests were already gathering, music played, the photographer darted around, and someone was arranging decorations on the cars. Kira stood in her white dress, delicate as porcelain, smiling as if her smile held the entire world together. Artyom spotted his mother immediately and let out a sigh of relief. He approached her. "Mom," he said, his voice a little too loud with feigned joy. "Where have you been? We were worried." "I was where I needed to be," Lyudmila Petrovna replied, calmly. Her voice was steady. Artyom suddenly became alert. "Mom, is something wrong?" "What's wrong?" she said quietly. "Is that today I am signing nothing, no formalities? And I ask you, don't try to persuade me." Artyom turned pale. "What are you doing?" He glanced around, as if searching for Igor Sergeyevich. "Mom, now isn't the time." "Now is precisely the time," Lyudmila Petrovna stated calmly, "because you intended to do it today." Artyom opened his mouth, but no words came out. Kira approached, sensing the tension. "Lyudmila Petrovna," she said softly. "Is everything all right? Can I help with anything?" Lyudmila Petrovna looked at her. The girl truly understood nothing, and there was something particularly bitter in that fact. "Kira," she said gently, "you're not at fault, and I don't want to spoil your day. So, we'll have the wedding now, and talk later." Artyom exhaled as if he had just been given air, but Lyudmila Petrovna added, looking him directly in the eyes, "And one more thing, son. After the ceremony, we will talk without guests, without Igor Sergeyevich, and without pressure. If you are a man, you will handle it." Artyom nodded mechanically. The ceremony was beautiful. Everyone smiled, applauded. The photographer captured joyful faces. Lyudmila Petrovna also smiled, but her smile was serene, like that of someone who had made a firm decision. At the reception, Igor Sergeyevich arrived later than usual. He approached Lyudmila Petrovna, kissed her hand, and said, "Lyudmila Petrovna, congratulations! Everything should be perfect today." "And it will be," she replied equally politely, "as long as you don't interfere." Igor Sergeyevich narrowed his eyes but maintained his smile. "I heard you went somewhere this morning." "Yes," she said calmly. "To the bank?" Igor Sergeyevich's smile thinned. "And why?" "To remember where my money is," Lyudmila Petrovna replied, "and where my signature is." He paused for a moment, then raised his glass. "To family," he declared. "To truth," Lyudmila Petrovna said quietly, also raising her glass. In the evening, after the guests had departed, after Kira had gone to her room to change and remove her heavy jewelry, Lyudmila Petrovna asked Artyom to step out onto the porch. It was cool, quiet, and finally, no one was listening. "Mom," Artyom began first, Did you Did you hear something? Did someone tell you? I don't need people to tell me, Lyudmila Petrovna replied calmly. I heard it myself, in the car, under the blanket. Artyom grew even paler. You... He swallowed. Victor didn't save my life, literally, Lyudmila Petrovna said. He saved me from your signing behind my back. Artyom lowered his eyes. Mom, I didn't want to. You did, she interrupted gently but firmly, because you discussed it, because you agreed, because you counted on me, being touched, to sign. Artyom remained silent. He was ashamed, but shame was no excuse. Are you in debt? Lyudmila Petrovna asked. Yes, he exhaled. But I thought it would work out. It's business. A project. It's not a project, she said. It's a noose. Igor Sergeyevich has you by the throat, and you wanted to put me under his hand. Artyom looked up. Mom, I didn't want you to suffer. It's the house. It's still a house. It's not still a house, Lyudmila Petrovna said. It's what you considered yours while I was around. But the house is mine, and will remain mine, and as long as I'm alive, no one will make me a convenient signatory. Artyom exhaled loudly, yes, as if he wanted to cry but held back. What should I do now? He asked quietly. Lyudmila Petrovna looked at him for a long time. First, she said, you will tell Kira the truth. Not everything, if you're afraid, but enough for her to understand what's happening. She must not become a hostage. Mom, second, Lyudmila Petrovna continued, you will cease all dealings with Igor Sergeyevich. I know it's frightening, but it's more frightening to lose yourself completely. He won't let go, Artyom whispered. Lyudmila Petrovna nodded. Third, tomorrow you will go with me to a lawyer. We will review your debts, contracts, signatures, and choose a legal way out. You are a grown man, Artyom. The solution must be adult, not a deception of your mother. Artyom remained silent. And fourth, she said more softly, you will ask for my forgiveness. Not with words, but with actions, because trust isn't built on Mom, please forgive me, but on years you must earn back. Artyom nodded, and for the first time that evening, his shoulders seemed to drop slightly, as if he were tired of his own deception. Mom, he said, I was truly scared, and I thought if you signed, we'd just get through it. Get through it? She replied. Only you would get through it. I would survive, perhaps. Do you understand? Artyom covered his face with his hands. The next day, Igor Sergeyevich arrived uninvited, as if he owned the place. He entered the house confidently and said, Good morning. Where is Artyom? We need to talk urgently. Lyudmila Petrovna met him in the hallway. In her hands was a different folder, not the one he had intended. Artyom is busy, she said. No, he's speaking with a lawyer today. Igor Sergeyevich raised an eyebrow. Since when? As of today, Lyudmila Petrovna replied calmly. And furthermore, you will no longer discuss anything with my son without me. You're used to playing the clever one. You've played your game. Now the rules are changing. He smirked. Lyudmila Petrovna, you don't understand. I understand more than you think, she interrupted. I understand that you want my house. I understand that you've used my son. And I understand that my son allowed you to. Igor Sergeyevich smiled coldly. Then you understand that it will still happen as I said. Lyudmila Petrovna looked at him directly. No, she said, it will not. I have forbidden all transactions. I have documented the requests, and I am prepared to go further to places you dislike visiting, to the authorities, to court, to the press if necessary. For the first time, Igor Sergeyevich's expression changed almost imperceptibly. Are you threatening me? I am warning you, Lyudmila Petrovna replied calmly. There's a vast difference. At that moment, Artyom emerged from a room, looking tired, his eyes weary, but no longer a boy being led by the hand. Igor Sergeyevich, he said quietly, I am terminating all relations with you, from now on, through lawyers. Igor Sergeyevich looked at him for a long time. Do you understand what you're doing? I do, Artyom replied. For the first time in a long while. Igor Sergeyevich smirked, turned, and left. His departure was too calm, suggesting he would try again. But Lyudmila Petrovna was no longer as fearful as she had been that morning, because she now knew that silence could be a weapon, and so could the law. Months passed. The scheme Artyom had fallen into was complex but not insurmountable. Somewhere along the way, a car had to be sold. Somewhere, an admission of error and a fresh start were necessary. It was difficult, shameful, painful, but it was honest. Kira cried at first, then remained silent, then looked at Artyom for a long time, as if relearning to see him as a person. She could have left, and she had every right, but she stayed on one condition: no more lies or formalities. Artyom agreed. Lyudmila Petrovna did not seek to destroy her family. She didn't exclaim, "I told you so." Instead, she simply maintained her boundaries. And one day, on a perfectly ordinary afternoon, that as they sat together in the kitchen, Artyom suddenly spoke. "Mom, thank you." "For what?" she inquired. "For not destroying me with your truth," he confessed. "You had the power to do that." Lyudmila Petrovna offered a gentle smile. "I didn't bring you into this world to shatter you. I bore you for life itself, and life is about responsibility." Viktor Nikolaevich remained immersed in his work. One day, Lyudmila Petrovna approached him by his car and extended an envelope. "This is for you," she stated. "There's no need," he replied. "There is," she calmly affirmed, "because you did something not all men would. You didn't stay silent when you had the option." Viktor Nikolaevich accepted the envelope, but refrained from looking inside. He simply nodded. I didn't want you... for you..." He hesitated. "Thus I understand," Lyudmila Petrovna interjected. "And thank you." Lyudmila Petrovna would occasionally recall that particular morning. The cozy blanket, the hushed tones, the exchanged words, the formalities, the signature, the bank. She remembered how easily everything could have been lost. Their home, their peace of mind, her faith in her son, and the immense difficulty of piecing oneself back together afterward. But the most profound lesson she carried forward was simple and quiet. One cannot live solely on blind trust, even with loved ones. Trust isn't about being oblivious. It's about seeing clearly and choosing to remain present, a conscious decision. On that fateful morning, just before the wedding, for the first time in many years, she chose herself, not merely to avoid a scandal. And in doing so, she saved not only herself, but also her son. Because sometimes the greatest gift you can give a child isn't money or material possessions, but a timely, firm stop, an acknowledgement that things cannot continue this way. Though it was painful, it was honest. And honesty, as it turned out, can also be a form of love. Yem.